like me, you live in UK, then you need to prepare for tomorrow, being Friday, because the temperature's going to soar to 86 degrees. So you need to be on top of that watering, especially if you're growing plants in greenhouses and containers. The containers are going to dry out really quickly, and if it's 86 degrees outside, it's going to be over 100 in your greenhouse. So make sure you leave your doors open and any windows that you've got as well. When you water these plants, don't water them during that full sun heat, or you will burn all the leaves of your plants. So my suggestion would be to either water them early morning or last thing the night before, and give them a really good deep watering, because we don't want his plants drying out and shriveling up because the heat has changed so drastically. And if you are watering your plants, make sure you're watering around the base, not over the top of the leaves, because again, that's going to cause those leaves to burn. But meanwhile, today for me, it's feeding day, so I'm going to mix up a few watering cans of diluted tomato food and make sure all these plants have all got a good feed and nutrition, all on the same day, so I know it's been done. And we'll repeat that process once every 14 days. And we'll also have a little check around the garden and see how all these plants are doing. These are some that you may not have seen before. The sempervivums, and they've just put up the flower stalks. And they look amazing. And they're all just in this little homemade planter that we made out of a pallet, because they don't need a lot of soil to grow. So this environment for them is perfect. These plants are drought tolerant as well, and they can also survive in shady areas. So these are very low maintenance. This plant is doing really well. Plenty of flowers on it. And we've just started to get flowers on those petit pois that we planted. All these plants are looking really well. Bit of slug damage to a few leaves at back, but plenty of new ones growing. But this ground is getting quite dry. But this is probably where you're going to face your biggest problem with your plants wilting in that heat, especially leafy lettuce plants like this. All these onions are trying to bulb up now as well, which is good to see, because we're just experimenting with these in greenhouse. But again, we need to make sure that these have got plenty of moisture come tomorrow. And of course, as I said, containers, they're going to dry out quicker than anything. But if you've got one of those testers that I usually leave links to in the description, you can just push that into compost and it will let you know whether it's wet enough or not. Also, you can just pick it up, make sure it's not light, because if it is, then it's dried out. And you don't want your plants to start dropping flowers instead of producing fruit, because the heat's stressing them out so much. And we've put this little frame up for now for these cucumbers to grow up, and we'll pin it to this frame as we go. But also we've got a little cucumber growing already. So as well as keeping these plants watered, we need to keep them off the ground to stop the leaves rotting. And then when we water them around the base, even if it gets really hot, these leaves are not going to burn. And if you've got anything like this in little pots, they're going to dry out in no time. So keep a check on that, and maybe put them in a tray and bottom water them. Don't top water these. You could also use some kind of shade cloth if you have any, just to pin to your greenhouse, just to reduce the amount of light that gets through. And when you've got areas like this that's got lots of plants all together, definitely give these a really good deep watering with a hose pipe or something the night before. Because we especially don't want this dwarf patio pear tree getting stressed and starting to drop the fruits that it's growing. All your small containers are going to dry out really quick as well, but you can test that by pushing your finger as far down as you can get and see if there's any moisture in the bottom of there. If not, give it a good watering. Again, better to do it the night before, or water around the base of the plants so these aren't getting burnt. If your tubs dry out too quickly, this is going to happen. Things are going to start and wilt, and if you don't keep on top of that, they will die. And especially in potato plants, you don't want that happening. So ideally, just move it out of the sun. So if you are going to be out at work most of the day, like a lot of people will be, if you're growing things in containers, just move them out at sun, and then you know they're going to be fine. Also, if you're growing spinach, especially in containers, you need to cover that up somehow with a shading cloth or move it out at sun, because spinach bolts very quickly if it gets too hot. And again, small containers like this that you're growing your lettuce leaf in, move them out at sun. And then they won't shrivel up and die. And of course, things like this in your little pots, if they're in your greenhouse, take them out and place them in a tray to bottom water. So something like this will be perfectly fine, and then you can put all your small lettuce seedlings on there, because they'll go over first if they get too hot, and then what other plants that you've got in pots. Because if you let these plants get too hot, this will happen. The leaves will start to curl up because they're trying to protect themselves from that heat and stop photosynthesis through that leaf. And sometimes when that happens, they won't unfold again. So a quick and simple solution to this problem is this. So a few solutions there before this heat arrives. Open your greenhouse doors, open the windows. If you've got shading cloth, put that up. Try and cut back on a bit of that heat. If you're growing things in containers and pots, move them out of the sun rather than chasing up on it every hour, because it keeps drying out. Because when your plants are deeply watered and then they dry out constantly, it's not good for them. And especially with things like cucumbers, because a cucumber plant will try and take up as much water as it possibly can get. If you constantly keep feeding that plant water, it will take up so much water throughout a really hot period, it will split its own stem, and then that plant's no good. So, like I say, deep water the night before, so everything's had a really good soaking. Water around the base of your plants where you have to during the day, and bottom water anything that's in little pots in a big watering tray. There's links in the description to various things that I use if you're interested in getting anything like that. But obviously you won't get anything like that by tomorrow. But it could be something for later on, because we're not even in summer yet and we're starting to get these crazy temperatures. 86 degrees is a big change from what we've been used to over the last few weeks. So any plants that you may have in containers, if like me you do a container garden, we'll get those all moved off that patio area for that entire day, just so we know everything's going to be fine. So just for that little bit of preparation in advance, you could save yourself a lot of hardship. So I'm going to wait until about tea time-ish tonight, when them temperatures drop down a little bit, and then I'm going to go around with the hose and I'm going to deep water every single plant I've got. And you've seen there's a few I've already moved out of the sunlight and put them in shade, and they'll be staying there until probably Saturday. So if you'd like to see more content like this as we start going into summer, then please just hit that subscribe button, press that notifications bell, and we'll see you on the next update. You all take care. Thank you for watching.